Hey everybody, George here with another episode of the In Good Spirits podcast with my friend here, Chris.
George, how you doing today? I'm gravelly voiced and I'm ready for whiskey.
It's the 6 packs a day is catching up to you, isn't it?
uh, just a run around kind of day, not enough water, but I'm ready for action.
I've always wanted to do a podcast with Clint Eastwood. This is great.
Oh man.
Feeling thirsty, punk.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Oh
what
god.
better way to hydrate than whiskey? So,
Oh yeah. So what do we got in front of us today, buddy?
in front of us today are a couple of really cool single malts, one from Scotland, and that being the Deanston Stout Cask finish. This is
Okay.
actually a US exclusive, so they don't have this one in Scotland. And what's cool about it is, have you ever had Dragon's Milk from New Holland Brewing?
I
Bourbon
don't
barrel aged stout.
I don't think so.
Very good. I think you should try and find that in your next outing to anywhere that sells cool beer.
Sounds
But
good.
New Holland Brewing also has a distillery, makes bourbon, dumps the barrels out to bottle the bourbon. Well, look, hang on, rewind. Take out the bourbon, put beer into the bourbon barrel, take the beer out of the bourbon barrel, and then put bourbon back into the beer barrel. So it's bourbon, beer, bourbon on the barrel. Anyway, so some of those barrels, after having the beer in it, instead of putting their bourbon in it, they send it off to Deanston and they put their scotch in it.
And Deanston is which Scotland location?
Scotland, duh. No, they're
Yeah.
sorry. It's one of those days. Highland. They are a
Highland.
Highland, and they are
Gotcha.
in. Actually blanking on where they're from now. Where is the actual place? That's not helpful. It's imported through Illinois. Great, thank you.
Scotland via Chicago.
Oh, Dune, Scotland.
Gotcha.
There we go. I knew it was right on the front. And anyway, the other single malt, a little different. A French single malt done in Armagnac casks.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more why France is a great place for single malt when we get to it.
Sounds good. So we're diving right into our Deanston.
Hell yeah.
I was watching some other whiskey stuff recently, and it's I'm always learning more about Scotch. So it was, I didn't know that Speyside was the overarching and Highland was a sub-region. So I had no idea about that.
Flipped it. Other way.
Did
Space
I
Side's
did
a
I flip
subregion.
it?
Yep, Space Side's subregion of Highland.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm learning more about this stuff all the time, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know it was a subregion. I thought they were completely separate.
Space Side has the most distilleries, but it is technically a subregion of Highland. And it's, I'm trying to, like, if my hand is Scotland, um, it's basically the northeastern corner of Scotland. That's
Okay.
all Speyside, and the River Spey runs right through it. Highland is pretty much everything north of Lowland. Haha. But I'm trying to think of a good uh, mm, geographical marker. But Lowland is a relatively small area on the border of England, and then everything north of that area is Highland and beyond.
Okay.
Isla is off the west. It's an island off the west coast. Campbelltown is like on a little peninsula leading to that island. Orkney Islands is an island off of Speyside, up in the way northeast. Uh, that's about it. Yeah, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I just got it confused, but I find it interesting because it's learning about that because the one immediately everybody thinks of, you think of Isla because it's got that powerful punch you in the face character. While you know Highlands and Speysides are very different, a little lighter, a little bouncier on the palate versus that pound you in the face general style of the Islas.
It's actually always been kind of interesting to me how people tend to associate peat with scotch and assume all scotch is that way when it's a relatively smaller number of them that actually use peat in their malting process.
Yeah, and especially in that kind of concentration. Other places will use it lightly, but in that concentration, what did I get? I got one of the big boys, the cask strength Lafroig on my shelf, and that's just like so dense.
You like band-aids, do ya?
I
That was a
really
terrible. That
enjoy
was
it,
that was
but
like a shitty Irish accent. That was not Scottish at all.
no, it's really terrible.
I can do accents really well, but apparently not today.
Mm. Man, the nose on this is really pleasant. It's light. It's. I'm not getting a ton of complexity, but it's really pleasant.
It's definitely a little more straightforward, but I like
Yeah,
the really like roasty, cocoa-y notes that
yeah.
come
Just
through. A little of the
it's.
carameliness.
Yep, and it's just a touch. It's not. It's not overpowering. I think you and I had some real um, dark roast grain stuff recently that was very overpowering. This is very light. The chocolate's. It's still light and saline and with that bare amount of maybe that bare amount of peat on the back.
No peat actually. None
Really
at all.
none.
Not
See, I'm
even a
getting
not even a bit.
maybe it's that saline because I'm getting it right at that top. It's that rich, dark. It's something like that though. You know what I mean? It's that.
So I promise to everyone watching and listening that this really matters. Uh, get a little further back from your glass and sniff from the bottom lip, but further, a little further back. Do you get a
Oh
little
wow,
way
that
different,
is
right?
drastically different.
A little more nuance to it, a little more going on.
Yeah, definitely more concentrated. Um, no, it's really interesting. I have not tried that. Thank you for thank you for telling me because I've.
Play around. Like this is gonna sound again. This is gonna sound
Oh
stupid
yeah,
and it doesn't make sense, but of why it works, but it does. When you're nosing a spirit, move in, move out, move around. It really does change what you're picking up on it, and especially with a glass like the Glencairn because it's funneling everything. It's definitely funneling it more to the edges of the glass because if you look, think about it like merging lanes on a highway or something where you're reducing lanes. There's going to be more traffic and more vehicles on the edges as they're funneling in, right?
makes
Same
sense.
same way works with the vapors, but sometimes if you're too close, it's too overwhelming. So if you're a little further away, you get a softer hit, if you will.
No, it's really interesting because I'm actually getting more of that because people complain about. We always use Glencairns on this, so we're standardized, and that's just for the purposes of making sure we're tasting the same thing, smelling the same things. Um, but that's actually really drastically different from putting my nose closer to the top of the Glencairn versus the bottom. A really much more concentrated nose.
And another thing to do is inhale through your nose and mouth at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It is really drastically more concentrated at the bottom than it is at the top.
Yeah, I'm getting as I change where and how I'm nosing this, I'm getting things
Hmm.
like a little bit of red fruit, some bitter orange peel.
Yeah, I can get you that bitter now. I'm still getting that high. I'm getting a little bit of the high alcohol, that high saline, which is again very pleasant. I like that in the Highlands, and uh, you get a little bit of that in there. Hmm.
Take a stab at proof real quick, just on the nose without palate.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that it's in that low 90s, 46 ish.
Not gonna tell you yet. I wanna after we get to the palate, then I
Okay.
will I'll ask you again.
Yeah. Well, I'm diving in now. It's a little stingy, but it's thick. It's got it's got a real density to it. And when you're talking about that chocolate, I think that's what's aping some of those peat like it's got that dark a little bit of that dark roast to it.
Dark roast chocolate, the very the mouthfeel makes me think of like if you took Hershey's syrup and made it a little bit lighter.
Mm.
Kind of like almost not syrupy, but not creamy, but like thick, if you will.
It's interesting because I'm getting that stout character, and I don't know if it's purely
Yeah, like
influence or not, but I'm getting that dark roast coffee, bittersweet chocolate, almost baking chocolate. It's very dry. There's a flush over the palate, but I'm getting a lot of dry, dark chocolate.
that's a better way to describe the mouthfeel too, actually, like a really thick stout. Like almost like so thick that it's almost like syrupy, but not syrupy.
It's really interesting because there's still some brightness to it, but it stays for a little bit and then it's kind of overwhelmed by the dark roast character. I think this is the kind of thing I like to sample, but I wouldn't want a lot of.
I can see that. This is one where this is kind of hitting it where I really like it in the sense of I could drink this every day, knock
Mm,
back a few casually.
interesting.
Because I don't know, it's very well. First off, it's under $50 on the shelf. That's I think an important factor to put in here.
Yeah, I think I mean, at that price point, I think that's very reasonable. It's dense. Like, if you like dense whiskeys, this is dense. The palate is rich. It's rich and velvety on the palate almost. It coats the palate. It's got an oiliness to it. Which I like the mouthfeel a lot, actually. And now that we've tasted it, this is definitely higher proof. I mean, this is probably closer to cask strength in the 110 or higher, but it's pretty thick.
Do you want me to tell you now?
Yeah, I'm guessing it's 110, 115.
101 proof, 50.5%.
Interesting. It's weird because we've had a lot of, 101, 100 proof stuff, and this feels hotter on the palate. It's very dense. It's rich. It's got that viscosity that you would usually get with a higher proof whiskey, and it's got that oiliness. So I was thinking it was higher because it's pretty concentrated, really, especially for 100 proof.
Super concentrated in flavor. It's definitely got the richness and the mouthfeel, but what gives it away for me that's a little lower is the mouthfeel isn't quite as. It's not. I'm trying to think of the best verb or not verb. Ha, adjective. Totally wrong. I cannot. Yeah. Did you did you know I know how to write?
I verb your adjective.
uh,
No, I like it. It's a weird balance because it's that, it's those, like I said, it's that saline, it's that, that high apple. It's not appley. This isn't like a lot of the scotches we tasted that has a very appley character. It's not that, but it's
it has other orchard fruits though. Not so much apple, but
no.
like the bitter orange peel
Oh,
or like
I'm getting a little hazelnut now too.
hazelnut. Definitely, yeah. Hazelnut, like the oily aspect of hazelnut, which isn't
Yep.
it's not overly like sweet nut flesh. It's more
No,
like
I'm getting dry roasted hazelnuts. I'm getting a lot of that. And now, um, I could see why you like it, and I definitely know why I don't. But it's not a hatred. It's I'm enjoying it, but it's not something I would go back to often.
and that's fair,
Yeah.
which is great because more for me.
So part two. This is our part two. Is you said French
Oui,
Armorik, and you
that is
said
correct.
this is a single malt finished in Armagnac casks. Um, George, why don't you tell the people what is Armagnac?
It is everything that cognac wishes it was.
So, shout out to our cognac and Armagnac buddy Chris Carlson. Cheers to him.
Ambassador for cognac. There's probably nobody I know that knows more about cognac.
No, absolutely not. But So Armagnac is the almost basically like we were talking about. It's just a different regional style of cognac, basically.
Yep, different AOC. It is AOC for spirits in France too, right?
Yeah, I think so,
Yeah,
but
I think it's still an AOC. Anyway, since cognac is a region and brandy's made in that region according
ooh,
to the laws there, can be defined as cognac, kind of like sparkling wine done in the traditional method using the right grapes from Champagne is champagne. Armagnac is very much the same thing, where it's a brandy produced within the brandy, the Armagnac region.
yeah. So of course there's local grape influences that we're not going to talk about because I don't know the local grape influences, but the regionality of spirits and wine in France and in other areas, drive the grape selection. And Armagnac is very particular versus cognac.
So I think before I forget to mention it, why I said France is a great candidate for making single malts, aside from the fact that they've got cool casks like Armagnac casks at their disposal very easily, they actually have a lot of really good farmland. Scotland does not have the same uh, vastness of farmland, so a lot of barley used in Scotch comes from France.
Interesting. I was not aware of that. That's very cool.
Not all of it, but a very good amount of it because you just can't they can't grow enough barley. They don't have the space and
Oh
they
no,
got a
no way.
little too much rain, not quite enough sun.
Yeah, too many rocks. Too many rocks, too many waves. Not enough land. Wow, this is so drastically different on the nose. I mean, it almost couldn't be more like diametrically different than the last one.
It's like peaches and cream and
Oh,
it's light, it's fun, it's
it
delicious.
is. It's fruity, but not in a like, not in a Fruit Loopsy, fake fruitiness in any way. It's definitely like lightly caramelized, seared, dried fruit that was rehydrated and then seared dried fruit
That's a good way
because
to
it's
put it.
got that real caramelization smell to it, but not dark. Like that light, bouncy caramel. This would be like a refined dessert aroma.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I get like a peach creamy custardy type
Mm,
thing.
yeah, definitely custardy. I'm getting some of that vanilla-y, some of that, vanilla bean creme brulee with caramelized fruit on top kind of thing. The nose is very desserty. Um, Not in a sweet way, but like it just evokes refined desserts to me.
I would agree with that. You also get kind of like a
Oh wow, man,
like
you're not because I'm so used to nosing on the top, and I go to the bottom, and it's just like wow, punchy in the face.
it's not always going to be that exact spot, so definitely play around with it, but you definitely get a little better concentration of all the different notes, but also you kind of if you play with the distance like I was saying, you can get
Yeah,
like you can get the concentration without being overwhelmed. It's really cool.
yeah. No, and I'm getting just a little bit of that, high apple juice. Good apple, almost like biting into an apple juice, not like Mott's apple juice. Mm, man, I'm really liking this.
Really cool, right?
Yeah, super pleasant.
So speaking of our good friend there, Chris Carlson, last time I saw him, I thought, boy, by the way, for those of you who don't know who he is, if it's been made, he's probably had it. So
Yes.
I dug deep to try and find something that maybe I could bring that maybe he'd never had, and I brought this as one of the things, and he had not had it.
Oh,
I was
that's
very I
awesome.
was proud of myself on that one.
Oh, trying to stump him is it's a fool's errand most of the time, but so Chris runs spiritsreview.com. He's been in the game longer than most anybody, and one of those guys that knows way more people than anybody could possibly think. And when he tells you things, you're like, there's no way he actually knows all those people. And then you
And then
see
he
him meet
shows up.
somebody, and you're like, oh yeah, this guy. I'm like, what the shit? There's no way that's actually possible.
Yeah, it's crazy. he knows everything and everyone in the spirits industry. It's really, I think, the most interesting person he's ever brought around was Zamir.
Oh God, I've I've been in the vicinity of him a few times, and enough stories that we enough stories we
That
could tell.
that we probably shouldn't tell either. Uh,
Oh well,
Zamir Gata,
gotta yeah.
Gata, yeah. The former co-host for a
No,
while,
he was a like a Russian traveling companion
traveling companion. There
of
we go.
Anthony Bourdain on No Reservations and some of the other shows. So you could see him on that show, and a true character if it defines the word. Um,
But anyway, back to the whiskey before
yeah,
we
so this
start.
is yeah, I'm loving this. I'm ready to dive in because the nose is just fantastic.
So different though, isn't it?
Wow. Mm. Yeah, very different on the palate. Not nearly as fruity.
It's got like a funk to it,
Yeah,
like a dense earthiness that I can't find any technical information on the whiskey to know if there's a slight peat influence
I
or if
think
it's
so.
just
When I smelled it, I thought so. Um, the weird thing, it's so weird because the nose is so fruity and the palate is almost not at all fruity.
yeah, the palate's like I'm trying to think of a way to make it not sound bad because these are all very good things, but like it's like working in the garden, like it's earth,
Yeah. No, it's
dry
earthiness.
earth.
Yeah, and I think the odd thing is I'm getting you get I mean it's like a little bit of that, and it's not specific fruit, but it's like that light fruit sweetness right at the front when it hits, but then it's almost gone. It's not specific fruit. It's so fleeting. You almost have to search for it. You have to search for like that, canned peach fruitiness almost right on, almost that corn syrupiness. And I don't say that in a bad way, like that fake, like canned peach
Yeah, like the juice
sweetness.
around a canned peach. Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely peach without a doubt.
Yeah, but so weird because the nose is so driven by fruit and the palate is almost completely devoid of fruit. Very interesting. It's a perplexing single malt.
So, what do you think about proof on this one? Because I know what the proof is, but this one feels a little. Uh, it feels hotter on the palate to me. I'm not saying it is higher proof or not. I'm just saying that it feels
Interesting.
a
I'm
little.
I'm getting the opposite. I thought it was lower, so I'm guessing this is about 90 versus the last one. I thought the other one was definitely hotter, so I'm guessing this is closer to 90.
92,
Yep.
46%. Good call.
Um, it plays easier, but it's still it's not what's almost the death knell for a lot of spirits if we're tasting them at this point is that almost smooth wateriness of an 80 proof, um which is weird to say now but true. It doesn't play as that. It still has that alcohol sharpness, but it's definitely integrated. um yeah, this is a very, I could see this being very divisive because the experience is so different from one part of the tasting experience to the other.
Oh, it is, but I think it's an experience that people who like single malt or whiskey in general should really have because this is one, you're getting something that you don't see every day, a French single malt. Two, it's a really unique but very good experience.
Yeah, and now that we're letting it sit for a little bit, I think I'm getting a little bit of the fruit on the very back end before the earth overwhelms it. And it's right as it's waving over just before the wave dissipates. But again, I'm searching for it. I'm really working. I'm really working at it to get that fruit now. It's not nearly as apparent as, just drinking Armagnac or drinking something that has, the like that old brandy that uh that Italian brandy that we got. Um,
That
it's
stuff's
not
incredible,
nearly.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's so intensely brandy. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do an episode on that.
Hmm. So I think what I want to do, I want to guess the price point on this because this is so unique and it's French, but it's Armagnac, so it may be more accessible. I'm guessing I have no idea if this is even purchasable, but I'm
This
guessing
one currently is not. This was a limited one.
okay. So limited, my guess is I'm guessing high doubles, I'm guessing 80, 85.
I think it was a little less than that. I'm trying to double check it right now because I'm having a total brain fart on everything today.
Yeah. Um um yeah, I could see it again, I could see it at that 75, $80 range just because of the fact that it's French, the fact that it is a unique expression, and you're not going to get this kind of expression almost anywhere else, especially the Armagnac part, which is I think widely undervalued Armagnac. You can get really old Armagnac for much cheaper than you can get aged cognac.
Yeah, it's looking like in the 80s was about where it was.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Um, I'm not sure I'd be hunting it out for 80, but if I had bought it for 80, I don't think I'd be disappointed, if that makes sense.
I agree completely. I think if you went in blind, bought it for 80 or so, you'd be very happy with it.
Yeah, and I think especially as a unique expression to have in your cabinet to work through as a tasting, I think you'd be really intrigued. You'd intrigue somebody that hasn't tried anything like it before.
Oh, for sure.
And that's a valuable tool in of itself.
And the distillery does actually have other releases too. Like they've got a sherry cask and some
Ooh,
other stuff like
nice.
that. And they're really good too.
Nice. Yeah, there's been a lot of sherry influenced stuff that I've been trying recently. I think I was in Syracuse for my vaccine last weekend and I stopped in somewhere and they had a sherry finished High West store pick thing. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Great. I'll buy your store pick. Fine. Gives me something something different in the cabinet. But that's what I'm searching out right now is, I'm still growing what I have, but I'm so intent on making sure that when I have people over next, after I get vaccinated people over, that I can give people that aren't quite as nerdy as us a really unique experience. Say, hey, you want to taste different stuff? I'm going to give you some different stuff.
Right on. I think that's a good way to build the bar, so to speak. Have a little of everything, but in a unique and different and fun and interesting way.
Yeah. And I think that's what I want to, as we close out this episode. I think that's the message I want to give is, if you're getting your vaccine, which if you're eligible, please get your vaccine. I know George, you're scheduled.
I actually already have number one.
You got one, I got mine last weekend. But if you're eligible, go get your vaccine and once you get double vaccinated people, I mean, it's time to meet up again. It's time to see each other in person and once we get our vaccines, we actually might record in person again.
I think that's a good idea.
Oh, I'm
But
so excited.
little legal disclaimer though: only get in person if medical professionals in your area have cleared it. Don't blame us if you get COVID.
Well, I think let's close out this episode. One, both of these are delicious. Thank you for the samples. Um, and both worth finding if you have the ability. But George, where can people find you on the internets?
I can be found in a van down by the river, as well as on Instagram at Whiskey Jedi with the E, because this is America. There is a guy
America.
without the E out there. Nice guy. I follow him too, but he's not me. And what about you, Chris? Where can you be found?
Man, you can find me at Stromy on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me at Curate Meals on all the social media. We're getting ready for our delivery on St. Patrick's Day from another delightful restaurant in Rochester. We've had three sold out deliveries so far, and I'm excited to keep the ball rolling.
Yay! No, I think what you're doing is actually really awesome with that. Like not just in general, but being able to do that right now while restaurants could use the little boost. That's awesome. And if you are in the area, check that out. It's a great value for what you're getting. You're getting basically a meal for two for what was it,
40
40?
bucks, yeah, delivered.
That's unbelievable. Like we just Grubhub stuff from Furoshiki last night, and after a tip and everything, it was $60 for dinner for two.
Yeah,
And so I think that's a great value to consumers and really great for restaurants right now. So
I
I appreciate
appreciate
that you're doing
that.
that.
And to everybody out there, cheers, stay safe.
See ya.